You want to frame them in a way where you're saying, I'm not trying to keep my kids from my co-parent, from their father, from their mother. But I have some concerns. If we can just get these addressed, I think that we can be more accommodating to what he or she is asking me for, right? So you don't want to go in framing it as in me versus him, me versus her, because he said, she said is what it's always going to feel like without the documentation. Okay.
Totally.
So you want to work on the anxiety. You want to go in with framing it as in the first thing is about me being the primary caregiver. And then I'll talk about the concerns. And when I talk about those concerns, it will be to say, if he can actually fix these, we'll be in good shape. The kids will be better off.
I'm Summer.
And I'm Mike.
And we got married with children.
It's been 12 years since we got this gang together.
And we're still running the rapids of living with a blended family.
And sometimes that is just not easy.
If you're looking for support and tools when it comes to divorce, step-parenting, co-parenting, and giving it your best,
you're in the right place.
We're talking about everything.
You ready to get this party started?
Always.
Well, hello.
Welcome to another Everything Always podcast episode.
That's right, we're here.
We are here. We're here together.
We have a pretty cool person that Summer is going to be interviewing today.
Yes.
And her name is Renee Rodriguez. And man, I actually wasn't on the interview, so full disclosure, I wasn't there while she was doing it, but I got a chance.
You're not on a lot of the interviews.
I get it, but I did get a chance to listen to it, and I was like, man, there is some really valuable stuff here. And stuff that, honestly, I wish I would have had a little bit more access to when I was having to deal with some of these issues and, things when,
Yeah, I mean,
that was a relevant thing in my life.
Exactly. Renee's awesome.
Tell us a little bit about Renee.
I'm going to tell you about Renee. By the way, here's a reason why you're not just because of time, but there's another reason why you're not in a lot of these interviews.
I have a full-time job.
Well, I do too. I probably have more flexibility than you do. I think I just like to get super deep and into the conversations, and
Summer is so good at that.
I just can't have you stealing the conversation and going off on your thing. So I just have to
Are you trying to say that I'm now the one that does the over talking?
I always do the over talking, don't I? Okay. So Renee Rodriguez is our guest today, and here's what we're talking about. Actually, I'm so excited for any of you who are actually going through or have gone through a custody battle. You've asked the questions like, how long is this custody case going to go on? Some of you may have been like, wait, we already did this. Now it's years later and we're doing it again. That happens.
Yeah, you're wondering about how much money is it going to cost?
Oh, yeah.
How is it going to affect the kids? Which, trust me, no matter how much you try to keep them out of it, they know. They can feel the energy, or maybe in some situations they have all the facts.
Yes, and we talk about that too. Renee knows a lot about this. She's been through her own personal experiences. She knows how costly custody battles can be. She knows how risky it can be, even if you feel so strongly about your case. You literally
never know which way the court's going to go.
You have no idea.
And it's nerve-wracking.
It's very nerve-wracking, and there's tons of anxiety involved.
And it's slower than hell, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, nothing moves quick. So think about it before you get into it. It can be years.
That can happen. It's so true. But here's the thing. This is one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to have Renee on this show, because she's been through it, and she knows all about the custody battle. She knows about what it's like to work with attorneys, how to have a successful relationship with your attorney. She understands the composure that you need to have, the mindset you need to have when you go in to court. And
it's a mindset, and you need to have a strategy.
Absolutely. So that's what we talk about. We talk about
winning a board game.
We talk about strategy. We talk about how to take you from that feeling of being scared and hopeless to actually feeling confident walking into that courtroom. There's so many things, and I don't want to reveal it all. I also want to tell you that there is a very important link. We talk about this giveaway. You have to listen till the end because Renee has an incredible free giveaway for you. And I really think it's important for you if you ever fear that you might go through a custody battle again, even if you've already gone through it, if you have young children and you feel that it might be a threat to you, if you are currently going through it, she has created something that will help you dramatically. And there is a link to it in our show notes. It's too long for me to read right now. So just go to our show notes and you will find that link. And I will tell you right now that the code for it is everything always, but we talk about exactly what that is in the episode towards the end. So make sure you listen to everything, but you're going to get so much valuable information from Renee today. She has a degree in psychology. She's amazing. She has been through it.
Let's get to it.
All right, let's get to it.
Renee, welcome to the show. I am beyond ecstatic to have you here. There's nothing like talking about the topics that we're going to talk about with an expert like you, because I absolutely love when I see content that relates to things that I have gone through. And I know that our listeners have been through so much of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. And it's really hard to navigate. So we're talking about so many good things like mindset and strategy and how to support your spouse who's dealing with a high conflict custody situation. If I even just told you how many people write in on these topics, I was just so excited that you agreed to be on the show. So welcome and thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really, really happy to be here. And I am thrilled to be able to help anybody, even just one person, through this type of situation, because it's awful. It's usually the worst thing that can happen to people in their entire lives. So
absolutely, it really is. And it feels like something that's never going to end if you've gone through it. So yeah. I'm curious as to how you got into this line of work.
Yeah, there's some similarities in my story as to others, how they get into their work is that they've been through it, right? So I'd been through it. What had happened for me is that I was in a very high conflict custody battle. I had ended up leaving my co-parent when my son was just 5 months old because I recognized where things were leading and realized that it would be safer for us to just leave. But as I went into my custody battle, I'm the kind of person who, I have this background in strategy. I have this background in instructional design. I've been a teacher a million different ways. So I love information. And I was looking everywhere for information. And back when this was about 7 or 8 years ago, back when I was looking to figure out what had happened to me and how to recover from it, because I could tell I needed to recover. I kept seeing mental abuse, psychological abuse, this, that, and the other thing. And the resources would help me a little up to a point, but I couldn't quite get there. And then I discovered a term called narcissistic personality disorder, narcissistic abuse. And as soon as I started finding the people who help with recovery specifically for that type of emotional abuse, my friends were saying, Renee, you're back. We see you again. The person who got lost and became small, you're back. And one of the people who helped me out, I found the name of a divorce coach. And I thought, what is a divorce coach? What does that do? What does this person do? Do we need one of these? And my case had already started. And I worked with Tina Swithin, who is the head of OMB. She had just started it back when she and I first started working together. She completely changed the trajectory of my case. And when we got to the point where we got to the custody evaluation, forensics evaluation, whatever it might be called in anyone's particular jurisdiction, she said, this is not really my greatest area of expertise. Could you just kind of put together what you think they should know? So I went and I just sort of created this blueprint from my strategy background and just just being such an analyst and having this psychology background and thinking, well, psychologically, what are they really going to listen to and take in? And I put together just all these materials with my documentation, brought it back to Tina. And she said, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like this. She said, there's only 2 people out there who coach that I know of for evaluations, which are the most crucial part of a custody case. You should become one of them. You should become a third, coach. And I was like, whoa, slow your roll. I got to get through this. But, after I got out, she had people requesting my materials. I was sending them out. And then I realized that I needed to switch the kind of coaching I was doing into something that felt more impactful to me. And it is incredibly impactful. And, so now I'm a custody coach, and there's really not enough of us out there, because there's a real need for somebody to just come in and help you partner with your lawyer and figure out how to appear in court to get the custody arrangement that's best for your kids. And that's how I came to do what I'm doing.
I love that so much. And I think there's so many listening that would be like, I need that, And it is so stifling or debilitating, the feeling of when you're going through something like this, because it's your child, right? It's like the most precious, important human to you. And to have started in a place where this child, was born, that you have this beautiful child that you're like, you have this just security of knowing that they are yours and you're going to have this amazing relationship as they grow up. To then have that threatened and feel like it could be taken away, or that somebody might be saying things about you to try to disrupt that relationship. It's like, it just feels like the most horrible thing ever.
It is. It's, one of the things that my clients hear me say a lot is, you learn all these things in school. You think you know what you expect in life. You don't learn how to be in family court. That's not an expectation, right? So once you get there, you don't know what's going on, and you're being besieged really by a high conflict co-parent, right? If they're even co-parenting with you.
Right.
Some people need to refer to them as the other parent because there's just no co about it. But I always recommend that you are trying to co-parent, right? But you're also being besieged by the judge. You're being besieged by lawyers and by guardian ad litem and the evaluator. And there's just so much that feels like it's coming at you. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to turn it around to help moms and dads realize that these people are here to help you. It is a system. They don't have a lot of time to learn about parental alienation or narcissistic abuse or coercive control, but they would rather you were really the ones making the decisions, but it becomes impossible when you're with a high conflict co-parent. So that's what we try. That's what we're navigating. And when I work with my clients, basically there's 3 things that you have to go into a court case thinking about. It's strategy, mindset, and documentation, evidence. And people get people go to their lawyer and they expect that the lawyer is going to be the strategy piece. And the documentation, they're going to gather all of these text messages and gather everything, and just a thick pile of, emails and text messages and statements and all kinds of things, right? And they're just going to plunk that down in front of the judge. And then the judge is going to see the high conflict co-parent for who they are. But usually a high conflict co-parent has excellent impression management. These moms are kind of thinking, because I work largely with moms, and they're usually saying, how did I was the person I was a CEO. I'm a published author. I'm a strong person. How on earth did I get sucked into this? Wow. And the truth is, you don't divorce the person you married. You would never have married the person you divorced. Right.
Yes.
It's impression management. And so I have them think back, and it's kind of like, well, you remember what made you fall for them. Well, that's what's going to make the court fall for them. So.
Wow. That is so powerful.
That's really what they need to think into. And so the documentation is an important piece. Whether or not a lawyer has a strategy, I cannot tell you how many times I consult with a potential client, and one of the first things I ask is, what is your lawyer's strategy? What is you guys' strategy right now? Because my job is to help your lawyer, not replace your lawyer, right? And they're like, I don't know. We don't have a strategy. I don't know what it is. Well, please go back and ask your lawyer. Then they come back and they're kind of like, we still don't, it's not clear to me what the strategy is. And luckily I'm a strategist. I've been through it. I know what it's like to go into court against a narcissist. So I'm kind of like, okay, we're going to build your strategy and we're going to partner that strategy with your lawyer. So that's how we get the strategy. When it comes to the evidence, you can't just go in and plunk down everything you've got, because I've seen a lot of courts say, you've been gathering all of this. You've been spying and recording and doing all of this. It looks like you're out to get your co-parent. So it doesn't fare well for them. So we work on finding relevant evidence. And I'd love to spend a little bit of time talking about what relevant evidence actually looks like.
Please do. Yes.
So picture again, people come in, they've got 1, 2, 3-inch binders. They're kind of like, I'm going to turn all this in. My lawyer said to turn all this in. Here's what we do. We take a look at what they've got. Most of what people bring in are going to be emails and text messages. One of the first things I tell moms when I start, or any parent when I start working with them, is stop texting. Stop texting. The only time you should be texting them is to say, hey, we're here. We don't see you. Are we in the wrong place? Or, oh, you still have Amy's pet bunny in the, her stuffed bunny in the back seat. Can you turn around real quick and bring it back? Something like that. That's the only time you should be texting.
The coordination, business side of things. Dropping the kids off in 5 minutes.
Yes, the stuff that's immediate, because if it's coordination and logistics in general, you got to keep that to email, or better yet, a parenting platform like our Family Wizard or Talking Parents or Fair or App Close, or pick whatever you want, right?
Yeah, those are all great.
They're great. So the reason I don't like text messages is because grab those screenshots until you can get it down to email, right? But you've seen what a screenshot, take a look at the screenshot that you've taken of that text message and imagine that you're handing it to a stranger to your case. They're kind of like, wait, which one are you? Because you both look like you're mad at each other, right? So which side are you? Which side are they? And then you have to have like 5 different screenshots just to give them the whole thread of this. No, it's a mess, and they're not going to bother looking at it. And there's usually some pretty relevant stuff there. The other reason I don't like text messages being brought into court, screenshots like that, is because no matter what you're saying to each other, the interesting psychological thing about reading a text thread is that it looks more emotional than it is. So you could be putting something down like, hey, please bring the stuffed bunny back. If you can just turn around right now, and it can suddenly sound high conflict for a psychological reason with text messages. Texting just feels more emotional. If you've got it over an email, this is where it's going to be more relevant. So just one more quick thing about text messages, if you want to use them, because there's a lot of great evidence in text messages, you're going to want to download an app that will allow you to print it out as if it is as a transcript, almost like a manuscript, right?
Okay.
So that person. The other thing you can do is you can call your cell phone provider and you can have them furnish exactly that to you, usually for no charge or nominal charge. The thing to remember is that if you have deleted anything because you just couldn't stand looking at it, or you just wanted it that out of your energy field for whatever valid reason you did it, they cannot retrieve that stuff. So once you've deleted it, it's gone. But just because you can't see the whole history of text messages, they can print out the whole history.
You can retrieve it. I've heard them even, the court's able to actually subpoena those conversations. Like you said, even if you don't have them, if you have a new phone and you don't have them, they're still there, and they exist.
Yes, as long as you don't manually delete it from, your screen, then it's still there.
Right.
Emails are going to be more relevant. Obviously, they're the opposite of text messages. They don't look emotional. They give you a chance to have the whole thread there, and you're able to really highlight and use those things, especially if you're using one of the parenting portals that I listed earlier. Okay. Now, any sort of emails that are significant from any reports, statements, or emails from practitioners, professionals, and this practitioners meaning anybody in medicine, play therapist, talk therapist, professionals of any kind of specialist, teachers and coaches, babysitters, just anything, right? Those are going to be relevant as well, depending on what you're trying to narrow down. So if you're looking at all of these statements, if you're looking at affidavits, if you're looking at text messages, emails, and recordings, make sure that your state is a one-party consent state, because if it's a two-party consent, then they need to consent to being recorded. Most states are one-party consent for audio. Very few states are any kind of consent really for video. Okay. So audio recordings can be quite useful if you're recording during a handoff, which is when high conflict co-parents tend to really go off on you or say something inappropriate in front of the kids. It's good to have that kind of evidence, right? Then you want to get that transcribed, not by you, but hire somebody, maybe a former court reporter or something like that, to give you that transcription. Okay. But you're still going to give them on the flash drive the original, so they know they can hear it, they can listen to it if they want to. So these are very relevant pieces of evidence, but you can't just gather all that and plunk it down. Then what you want to do is you're going to want to sit down and you're going to divide all of your evidence into all of your categories of concerns. These are the issues I have with my ex. There's neglect. There's emotional, abuse. They're tardy. They're not taking them to school. There's malnutrition. They are on steroids. They are selling weed. It can run the whole gamut. Whatever your concerns are, you list them all out. You take a look at your evidence, and then you partner with your lawyer to determine the top 3 to 5 categories that you want to bring in. This is what we find is most successful, because then the court is not overwhelmed.
Right.
What I'm often saying is you're gathering all of this evidence and 90% of it you won't even end up using. But that's okay. You still want to document everything, because you don't know what's going to become relevant. What you go in with, what you start with is one thing. A lot of that other stuff can come into play when there's an allegation against you, or when they're trying to twist what they've done around and make it seem like you're the one doing it, right? That's when you whip out a lot of that other evidence. But if you go in and you slap it all down, you don't look good. So you've really got to organize it in a very strategic way so that they're seeing the evidence. You've got a cover page for each category of concern saying, here are the exhibits I've got attached. Here are a few little samples of what's in them, so that you are compelled to actually read them and get the whole context. And this is what we're finding is most successful in terms of getting the evaluator, the GAL, even the judge, to look at the evidence rather than say, I don't have the time to read through all of this, just tell me.
That is so great, everything that you just said. And man, it is so true that most times when you're going to a lawyer, they're not giving you any of that. There's not any of that strategy. I've never heard of anyone going through this having that type of a strategy.
Yeah, it comes down to the realization that something I like to say is, it's not like TV. It's not like you hire the lawyer who is just such a great big advocate and they go in and they're your savior. You have to be your own savior, and you can be. You really can be. When you hire a lawyer, your lawyer is representing you in court. Your lawyer is going to hopefully be skilled enough to partner with you to pull these things out. The majority of the time, they aren't going to help you pull these things out. And it might be that they're really busy. It might be, though, that they're pretty successful, or you wouldn't have hired them, but they're used to doing things the way they're used to doing things. Okay. So they're going to come to you. They're going to say, here's what I need. I need this, get these things to me. And they're not really spending the kind of time to discover something that could be a gem or a nugget. Okay. The other piece of what they're probably not going to do is really prep you for speaking in front of the court professionals or in front of the judge for a hearing or for a trial, which is one of the things I help clients avoid, is a trial.
So I'm guessing we're going to go into mindset, and really quickly, because I don't want to forget to ask this, because this is a big question that comes up. In gathering all of this evidence, one of the big things, you mentioned, were the apps, moving to email and avoiding text. what happens, because I have seen this happen over and over and over again when people have said, well, I no longer want to speak to you via text because of the communication is so emotional, like you said, and in an effort to protect themselves and to continue to co-parent successfully, they ask, can we move to an app, or can you only communicate with me via email? And all of the times that I have heard parents that try to implement this, the other co-parent, the high conflict co-parent, refuses.
Yeah.
I will not do that. I will not do that. It's a waste of my time. I will continue to check. Because I know I want to get into mindset really badly, but I had to ask this question because I know that that's something that people are asking when they hear this.
Yes. So yes. Oh my gosh, Summer, this happens all the time.
Right?
So there are a couple of tactics that you can use, all right, that I've seen work more often than not. One of them is to make it more visible. I find that when parents approach the other parent and say, hey, I want to switch to this, then they're going to come back and they're going to say, I don't want to pay for that. And you know what? I'm having technical problems with it. Those are the two biggest things I hear again and again as they come back. They're like, it's just not working for me. They should bring it up through the lawyers or at a court appearance or visitation, court appearance or hearing, or even through the GAL. All right. They should try to get somebody else to help them advocate for it. Once they do that, then this is sort of a two-stepper. That's your first step, is to try to get the court system involved to get you to do it. All right. The second thing is that if your co-parent comes and says, well, I can't afford, I think the highest that any of them are is $100 a year. Right. So I can't afford $100 a year to do this. Then I'm telling you, completely worth it. That's when you jump in and you say, I can totally appreciate where you're coming from. I will pay for your membership as well as mine. Because that extra $100 a year is beyond worth it. It is so worth it. It is the best $100. And then what's he going to do then, right? What's your co-parent going to do then? They're going to look bad if they're going to be looking for a whole bunch of other excuses, right? But usually, most of the time, that is very effective. The other thing that can get them to do it is if you frame it differently. If you are saying, I don't want to use text messages with you anymore. We have to move to this so that it's email. These platforms actually do a lot. And so while email is the best piece of it for a lot of people, you can also remind them that this is actually where we can have a share calendar. This is where we can put all the dates up there. Also, this is where we can put receipts in so that they're all in one place and you will have everything that you're asking for when you need receipts from me. We can also share pictures and videos on this. So these platforms allow for these things to happen. So whatever platform you're considering, take a look at everything they offer and bring it in as, our Family Wizard is such a great title because they're basically sort of encompassing what they're saying, which is to say, we're going to do everything for you, right? The other apps, most of the other apps do a lot of the same stuff as well. So choose whichever one you like. But my point is, you can frame it as in, now that we're not together anymore, we've got all these little mishaps and sort of like, you thought I said Wednesday and I thought I said, let's just solve it with this, right? And then, we can just use that. And again, you're just probably going to have to pay for it for them if they push against it. But they don't like it because it's got full transparency. It timestamps.
It knows your tone too. It'll suggest if you're saying something rude, like it reads that. And I think our family, well, at least I know that with our Family Wizard. I haven't tried the other ones, but our Family Wizard, I believe, is the most popular one that courts will actually mandate that this is how the communication has to run. I wish it was like that right at the onset of, okay, you're divorced. Here's the arrangement. You are required to use this. Trust me, it'll be the best thing you ever did. Yes, exactly.
You guys are getting a divorce? Shoom, here you go.
Yes.
No, it's, OFW, our Family Wizard, and Talking Parents is picking up in popularity. A lot of judges are also mandating that. So for those of you who are using TP, that's along the same lines. But yes, I believe that TP, Talking Parents, is bringing in something with tone, either that or FAIR. I can't remember which one. and FAYR is FAYR, folks, if you want to look that up, that they both have a tone meter. I know for OFW, you pay a nominal extra, I think it's $10 a year, but it allows them to come in and say, you're going to want to watch your tone here. I mean, that's one of the things I do with my clients is we learn how to communicate in a way that will not only make sure that they're not creating evidence against themselves in court, but hopefully bring at least more of a modicum of peace to the relationship.
Hey guys, did you know that you can text us now? Like if you want to be the first to know if we're going live or just launched a new episode, or maybe that we just went out on a date or had a fight, who's right, who's wrong, maybe we ate too much for dinner or missed a workout. No, seriously, we want to share more of what's going on in our lives, and we want to make sure that you don't miss out on anything new. So send a quick hello to 760-389-3722, and let's stay connected. All right, back to the show.
So let's now talk about mindset. And that is something that people feel extremely nervous about. You were about to go into that, getting up in front of court. How do you present yourself? How do you keep your cool and keep your calm? Because it is a very nerve-wracking thing. You're all of a sudden, having to present yourself in public in front of somebody that you really, really dislike at this point. So let's talk about that and how you can be prepared and the mindset and all of those things.
Yeah. I can give a couple of quick tips, but first I want to talk more deeply into this, keeping it as brief as I can, because this is huge. Yeah. I want to start by saying this. I cannot tell you how many of my clients come to me because they had primary custody and lost it because of a court appearance, because of the way that they appeared in court. And they had a great lawyer. They had their evidence. They brought it forth. They may or may not have been organized well, but what overwhelmingly was said was that the parent just came off as being emotional and out to get the other parent and that type of thing. So what we are often doing is trying to undo what's already been done, and we do it. So for those of you who kind of feel like things are lost and you're in the middle of your case, no, you can absolutely turn things around. Okay. Mindset is huge. And when I'm working with moms, they're always like, okay, I'm getting the strategy down. I'm so excited. We have such a great strategy and my evidence I'm feeling so good about. And it's kind of like, okay, but you still got to do these pieces I sent you on mindset. It's hard to dive into it because what you're doing is part of the work I do with the parents I work with is to say, we got to go back and I want you to tell me again, just like you did when we first met, what is the story of your relationship with your co-parent and how you separated and where you're at now. And then we take that story and we simply change some of the language. We have to be truthful. We have to be honest, but we pull out a lot of words that get you in trouble. These are words that it makes me very angry that these words get you in trouble, but using the words narcissist and abuse in the court system do not do well for you. Okay. Yeah. If you are not, and I don't mean, I don't want to be triggering or upsetting for anyone, but if you don't have a report from the hospital and pictures of something that's physical, it is very hard for the court to understand or believe what you're trying to tell them. Because some of the stories that these moms that I work with have, they're unbelievable. It's like nobody would ever believe a human being would ever say or do that. So of course she's going to come off sounding crazy. Mm-hmm. So with mindset, part of it ties into evidence. All right. You're looking for patterns of behavior. So when you come up with those concerns, make sure you're choosing something that they've repeatedly done. All right. So you're looking at that, and that's how you're describing what you went through. So if you're describing the emotional abuse, you can't go in and say that, right? So you want to change your language around the way you're telling your story. That's the first piece of the mindset. All right. The second piece of the mindset is dealing with the highly potential PTSD that you are suffering from. And if not, then the anxiety. And if not that, then the stress. This stuff shows up in court and it makes you show up poorly. There's a long-term approach that you have to this. And it's the type of thing that I always tell my clients, I'm going to sound very voodoo to you for a moment, but honestly, just go with me on this. You got to start meditating. I want you to download something called the tapping solution. And I want you to do the free anxiety session and just get at those acupressure points, because we got to work on your parasympathetic nervous system. Because if we can you have to train your body to not have these psychosomatic and physiological responses that you're in a position to have when you're in a court appearance or in a court case. You've got to train your body to get out of the fight or flight that you suffered when you were walking on eggshells, when you were living with your co-parent and trying to protect your child from what they're hearing or seeing or dealing with your co-parent, right? Because that's what a lot of these parents are just trying to do. They're just trying to protect their kids, and they're coming off as being neurotic, frenetic, and they're playing into the most common accusations that a high conflict co-parent leverages against the healthier parent, which is to say, oh gosh, they have anxiety, they have depression, they suffered from postpartum, they have anxiety disorder. They always go after these things, and this is what they come up with. And the way that you appear in court could possibly support these allegations. So you don't want that. You want to walk in very calm. You want to show that you are a firm but loving parent. And here's what you want to do. Instead of focusing on making the court see your co-parent for who they are, because guess what? The chances are very slim that that's what's going to happen, because these days, right now, in this phase of the family court system, the best interest of the children is often defined by as much time with each parent as possible. I want to be very clear. Statistically speaking, 50-50, unlike what's going on the Facebook boards and what people are saying, is not the norm. It is not common. More often than not, statistically speaking, it is the 80-20 breakdown, where one parent is the custodial parent and the other parent has 20% parenting time, something like every other weekend, and then a midweek evening visit, right? That is more common, okay?
Right.
But the courts really, really want to award as much time as they can to both of the parents, okay? So you want to go in and you want to just present yourself as the healthier parent and not sling mud. When parents go in, they want to say, this is what's going on with him, therefore he shouldn't have custody. This is what's going on with her, so she shouldn't have any time, right? That's not the way you should go in. The way you should go in, your mindset should be this: I am the healthier parent out of us two. I'm going to present what I have done that shows me as the primary caregiver. I've always been the one making the appointments. I've always been the one taking the kids to the appointment. I drop them off to school and pick them up. I take them to their games and to their classes. I help them with their homework. I cook. I clean their room. I do their laundry, etc. Right? You want to talk about those things, and you want to talk about the fact that you've been the primary caregiver, and you want to just lean into that and let that be what you're going into. Then when you do present those concerns, you want to frame them in a way where you're saying, I'm not trying to keep my kids from my co-parent, from their father, from their mother, but I have some concerns. If we can just get these addressed, I think that we can be more accommodating to what he or she is asking me for, right? So you don't want to go in framing it as in me versus him, me versus her, because he said, she said is what it's always going to feel like without the documentation, okay?
Totally.
So you want to work on the anxiety. You want to go in with framing it as in the first thing is about me being the primary caregiver, and then I'll talk about the concerns. And when I talk about those concerns, it will be to say, if he can actually fix these, we'll be in good shape. The kids will be better off, right? And this is all an overarching look at it. Obviously, each case, we go in and we take a look at each case and we see how we do that and how we're presenting it. And if there's something egregious, it's like, look, there's a restraining order here. So until this is solved, no, we don't think that there should be these kinds of visits, right? So depending on what your situation is, then we look at the specifics of it. But from looking at it from 10,000 feet, right? That is the strategy that you're going to go in with. So you're going to get that strategy. You're going to tie in the mindset and the evidence in with each other. But that mindset thing, you got to go in and you got to look like a firm but loving parent who also wants to be a collaborative co-parent. This is going to show up in your communication. So your emails can't be tit for tat. We do a very specific thing. I love Bill Eddy because he talks about BIFF, brief, informative, friendly, and factual.
Yes.
What I do for parents who have suffered from emotional abuse, I take out the I. We don't do BIFF. We don't do informative. We stay factual, because what we find is that the more, it's usually an empath who has suffered from psychological abuse. And so an empath is more likely, when being informative, to give so much information that a high conflict co-parent will come back and attack them with the information they've given them. And then the empath, the healthier parent's nerves are shot for a while and they're anxious again, right? And they're defending themselves. So I take out the informational, be brief, be factual, give all the information, be thorough with the facts, but don't be given a whole bunch of extra information, and be friendly. Okay. So yes, we just go BFF. We take out the I when it comes to emotional abuse. But yeah, take care of the anxiety, frame yourself in a certain way, have your evidence very well organized.
Amazing.
I have 2 tips that I want to give people for when you're in court. May I?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the first thing I sort of spoke a little bit about, which is to say, just before you go into court, like that morning, I want you to get up and I want you to do, even for those of you who are kind of like, I'm not going to do that. That just sounds so silly. I want you to do a tapping session. Okay. Because EFT, emotional freedom technique, right, is about just releasing a whole bunch of the crap that's in your body and having clarity around it, quite possibly, right? You need that before you go into court. So I don't want to poo-poo this. You really want to give this a try. So get some practice in on EFT and then just go ahead and give it a go. These sessions are 9 to 12 minutes long. Okay. So it's not a big deal. You just do it and you are guided through it. And it sounds all voodoo-y, but the truth is it's quite simple and it's excellent. The other thing is, when you're on the stand, when you're in court, you don't want to become a crying, sobbing mess. You have to get control of your emotions. It's okay if you're, verklempt, right? I love that word, verklempt.
Yeah.
They want to see that you have a depth of emotion. But when you're weeping and you're crying, you're going to support the accusations of, oh, look at her. She's anxious. She's got anxiety. She's depressed, blah, blah, blah. So here's what you do. You take your tongue and you push it as hard as you can without hurting yourself, just very firmly up against the roof of your mouth. If you feel like you're about to cry, take your tongue and push it up against the roof of your mouth quite firmly, and you will not cry.
That is brilliant. I love both of those. I have to recommend also, and I think Mike and I have even talked about it on one of the shows with the tapping. It's amazing. I've used it for presentations. It's such a great exercise. In fact, he was doing it where he doesn't do it anymore, but he used to have a timer on his phone that would remind him to do it once or twice a day.
Excellent. Yep.
Yeah.
I love alarms.
So great. Yes, I know. And those things, these things are just so helpful. And I would venture to say that a lot of our listeners would totally respect and be open and willing to try meditation and tapping and all of these things that you have mentioned, because you become a lot more open to these type things when you're going under this type of stress. Yes. You are very eager to find answers. And once you have these solutions at hand, it is gold. It is such gold. And I wish I I didn't know about the roof of her mouth. I wish I had that, because I know there are times when it was just, you're just thinking a different thought to try to, swallow and breathe through the tears that are welling up. It's hard.
Because you're in this, there's only so much that you can psychologically control once you're in this type of situation, because you're on the stand or you're in mediation, you're across the table from them. They're saying something isn't true, but they sound so convincing when they're saying whatever the situation in court might be, or you're sitting across from the GAL telling your story. That's all you have to do. And it just shuts it down, right? It just shuts it down. Are you still going to, like I said, the emotion's still going to be there, but what you're doing is you're just stemming the physiological response, right? So that you don't become that what was it that I called the wet rag on the stand syndrome?
Yeah.
That's how we solve for it. And it is helpful because there are judges out there who they have a negative response to a lot of crying on the stand. So you always want to just be as, I call it conservative as you can in your choices with court, just kind of protecting yourself against what anyone's biases might be.
Right. One thing I wanted to ask, and I think I brought it up at the very beginning of this interview, and I know that you're working a lot with your clients are the ones that are going to court. They are the ones that are dealing with a high conflict co-parent. But we have a lot of blended families that are listening, and there are, some partners have a spouse that is dealing with this. And so while they might not be dealing with it themselves, their spouses, their partner is dealing with a high conflict co-parent. And it's hard to watch, it's hard to watch anyone that you love go through something like that, where they are being, things are being said about them that aren't true, or there's, bad mouthing to the kids about them. You're watching them go through this. You're watching them go through a custody battle, and you feel out of control. Do you have some advice for those that are watching their partners go through all of the stresses that we just talked about, and in a way that is, because I think the struggle is, how involved do I get? How much do I step in? How much do I step back? What's actually supportive? What's too supportive? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think there's a few things. The first thing is that you should try to be as invisible to the high conflict co-parent as you can be, because that just creates problems. The high conflict co-parent gets threatened. They feel threatened. And I've had plenty of parents come in to say, my co-parent is accusing my new husband of attacking him, and it's just nothing like this ever happened. They should just be as invisible as they can be to the high conflict co-parent. When you're supporting a parent who is going through a custody battle against someone like this, who most likely has a cluster B personality disorder, then interestingly enough, it plays a little bit into what I'd mentioned earlier about when you're looking for a lawyer and what you expect from a lawyer. We come out of this, and we have to strengthen our boundaries when we come out of this kind of relationship. And then we're hoping that our lawyer can help us. We might, not everyone, but I would say be careful of looking for a savior. And it's so important when recovering from this kind of relationship and going through a custody battle with this kind of co-parent, that you are learning your own strength, right? So then how does your new partner fit into this, right? So I think it's important that a new partner doesn't try to be that savior then, because I find that these parents need the space to save themselves. That's how they become better, both in terms of recovery and in terms of how they're dealing with their ex. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think you lean on them. And I think it's when they're coming to you and they're saying, what do you think of this? That you're helping them think through it. And that, usually if you found a new party, you are able to sense when they really just need you to help them kind of make a decision. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I think you have to help them walk through it. The other thing that I find that my parents really desperately need as they're going through this custody case is a different kind of space. And that is space from being a parent. Building your own case takes an enormous amount of time. And a lot of the parents I work with don't have it because they're parenting and they're step parenting, and they want to be the best they can in both of those roles, which is just largely parenting, right? So they're just trying to be a great parent, and they're also trying to be a good spouse. I think that what I'm finding with these moms is that the number one thing they want is the time. It's just time to sit down and build their case and really dive in. And space in such a way that they have the support they need to get through the triggers of doing the work. Because when you are putting together your evidence for the case and going through everything, you're reliving some pretty cruel moments of your past, and you really are reliving them. So it's great if the co-parent says, hey, I know you're putting together evidence today. What can I do to make this easier for you? And just holding that space for them in whatever way that co-parent needs is huge for the clients I work with. When they get that kind of space, when they come back to me and they say, oh my God, Renee, I had 4 hours on Saturday. Here's what I've got for you. Man, I'll tell you what, their case just catapults. We see new ways into their strategy. And we're just like, oh my God, your evidence is ready. We're almost done with the evidence grid for your lawyer. It's just, we really leap ahead when they simply get that space, not just carved out, but held for them. I think that I know it sounds simple, but it's huge. It's huge. There's certainly all kinds of psychological components, but when somebody is trying to get through a case, holding that space for them is so tremendous. And it does give them that psychological boost, because it's the same thing as it is with anything else in some ways. When you're running behind on something, when you know you've got to do something, when you're avoiding something, once you get these things done, the way you feel is amazing. And you start thinking a bit more too. And you start realizing something else you can add into your strategy. You start remembering a bit of evidence that you have to unearth. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it really behooves the case for your new partner to hold that space for you in that very simple way. Take the kids out to the reserve for the day, whatever it might be, right? Just something where you are just there and you're doing it and you've communicated. But listen, people, you got to communicate with your co-parent. You got to say, after about 45 minutes of reliving some of these emails, I'm just ready to cry. So here's what I need from you. Here, have my jogging shoes ready, because I got to go for a run with tears streaming down my face and then jump right back in when I get back. Or I got to have the Mozart playing. So Alexa is mine right now, everybody, right? Whatever it is, something that helps you just get through the triggering, take your break, whatever you need. You just want to get through some real chunks of building your case and getting through it, because that's how you win your custody case, is that you build it. So you need that space.
Love that so much. So how can our listeners learn more about you, find ways to work with you? I know you have some great resources as well. What is the best way to do that?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I think go to custodycorner.com. If you go there, you'll be able to take a look at a masterclass that I put together that'll help for court, right? But, another place that you can go is I have a Facebook group called Custody Empowerment. Okay. This group is not, if you want to come into this group, it's not the type of group where everybody's coming in and doing a lot of complaining. Sometimes you need that space, and I get it. This is all about building your custody case and getting the tools you need and the information you need, and communing with people who are in this same exact boat, up against a cluster B personality disordered parent, and just needs this kind of information. So find Custody Empowerment. We're doing it with virtue and truth. We're not trying to annihilate our ex. We're just trying to get what's best for the kids, because it's always about the kids.
Yes.
And I want to offer your listeners one of the templates that we use I have a program called the Custody Warriors Blueprint Program. And all of the stuff I've been talking about, all the work we do together, that's in the Blueprint Program. So I'd love to give your listeners one of the templates from the Blueprint. It's called the Timeline of Disturbing Behavior. Disturbing behavior is our euphemism for abuse, since we don't want to use that. So the timeline for timeline of disturbing behavior is a way for you to lay out, to map out in the most visual, mind mapping, in your face sort of way, so that the court professional cannot look away from the stories you're telling them, because it's laid out very simply. It's a 1 or 2 pager, depending on how much you want to tell them. You hand it to them and they have a crystal clear picture of what your ex is like, what they were like before the relationship ended, right after you left them, or you can apply it to a particular topic. But I'm going to give you the link to that, Summer, so that you can hyperlink for your listeners, because
yes,
I'm
please.
add in, there's a little bit of I won't spend any more time talking about the timeline, because there's also a 10-minute video to really get your juices going on how to use it best for your case. So just, you can just go in, download the timeline and get working on it yourself.
Okay, so we will have the link to that template in the show notes. So make sure that you check out the show notes. We will have that there. And it's also custodycorner.com.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much so generous of you and extremely helpful. That is so awesome. And then the group is Custody Empowerment on Facebook.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, wow. Renee, this is hard stuff, but you really, it's almost like an empowering feeling just hearing you talk, because it feels like there's actual tangible things that you can do to get through this in the very best way for yourself and for your kids. So I appreciate this so much. And thank you for sharing so much incredible value with us today.
It's my pleasure. The more people I can help, the better.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. And we like to say, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you love, and be bold enough to share it with someone you don't. See you next time.